Cool. All right. Hello, everybody. Folks are starting to trickle in. We got Adam, Alexa, Britt, Carmela, Gerard, Heather, John, Medina, everyone. What's going on? Hello. As folks come in, I'll read out names. That's a fun way to go. Everyone feels special. We got it's gonna be alphabetical though, so that's hard. So I'm gonna miss a bunch, but we got Natanya, Ronak. Hey Sam, nice to see you. That's Heartstock I saw. Will Harder. Hello. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. We're going to give people a minute or so to come in, trickle in. We're going to get the slides up. We got an amazing show for you today. I don't know if anyone's seen Cirque du Soleil or like the Bruise Brothers Live or Fish on Tour. This is going to be similar to that. Super climate heavy. James is going to play guitar at some point. We're going to have a wonderful hour. James, you bring the bass, or what are we doing today?
Yeah, bass for sure.
Bass for sure. You look like a bassist. So
Don't I? Yeah, just have to play the
that
part.
that adds up. Well, everyone, we'll give folks a minute to trickle in as you just look at our pretty faces here on the screen. We'll get going in when my clock, 103. My clock hit 103, so we'll get going at 103. But hey, everyone, it's good to see you all. My name is Adriel. I'm a director of sales at Green Places, a carbon accounting software company. I'm very, very excited to host you for this conversation. We've got James Rooney, who's the Senior Director of Strategy, of ESG Strategy at Olo, a publicly traded restaurant software company working with hundreds of restaurant brands across tens of thousands of locations. And Erica Chang-Luck, who is the Associate Director and Environmental Lead at QB Consulting, a woman-owned ESG consulting group, who also works with Olo and many, many other companies supporting their ESG growth. So most of our conversation today is going to be about what it is that Olo is doing in sustainability, how and why they got started, what's been super challenging and frustrating to them, what they've messed up and how they're fixing that, because I think that transparency is going to be super helpful, and then what a lot of their goals are. And James is going to talk to you specifically about what it was like to build that program from the ground up. Erica will add color and say, this is what other companies are doing, or here's what really good looks like, or here's what Olo can continue to think about. We'll pepper in questions throughout the conversation. So if you have them, or if you have ideas or thoughts, or want to throw in a case study from your own company or something you guys yourselves are dealing with, please feel free. And I think that'll be amazing. So you can throw in questions the entire time as much as you'd like. We also have a few polls that we're going to ask throughout the conversation. So Sarah, if you can throw the first poll up, basically want to know where everyone is at around sustainability. So what is your current understanding? I'm sorry, there you go. Not this one. Not this one either. There's an earlier one. There we go. How do you rate your current understanding of sustainability practices in your organization? Basically, are you guys really good at sustainability? Are you barely getting started? Do you know a lot about it? Do you not know much about it? Would be very helpful to understand where people stand and where people are at, so we can make sure to tailor the conversation accordingly. I think the wrong poll's up. We're on poll 3, but we got to go back a couple polls. But we'll get there. As you guys answer that poll, I want to get started with the first question, and then we'll loop in the answers from that poll moving forward. There we go. That's our poll. We're hitting it on all cylinders. So if you can answer the poll, would help us understand where everyone's at. But first question is to James. I want to understand, when you got brought over to Olo and you joined a few years ago, what led that version of Olo in that time to think it's important to start a sustainability practice?
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks for having me, and hi everybody who's joined. So it really it comes from a few different places. One, Noah Glass, our CEO and founder, he was always involved in social impact activities. He's very involved with No Kid Hungry and that whole campaign and movement around feeding children. And the company has core values as well that we talk about all the time inside the company. It's around caring for one another, acting with trust and accountability, striving to grow and improve. So all of this is kind of at the core of Olo anyway, like at the core of its business and everything like that. So I think that the desire for ESG kind of grew as they were looking to IPO and become like a grown-up company. As they were looking to IPO, they were like, hey, like let's get a little bit more serious about the ESG space. They wanted to start with disclosure right away. They wanted to make sure that we were kind of tidied up, had our strategy in place as we became a grown-up company. And I had helped other companies do this in the past, startup programs and initiatives and ESG and social impact and stuff like this. And so when I saw the opportunity, I started talking with them, and it was great. They have a great energy about it. They really are driven to do this work. And so me coming over to kind of help them and build out the strategy was kind of a no-brainer.
So it sounds like it was two things. It's a cultural thing. It matters to the CEO. It's already been talked about, and you were there to sort of put structure around it. And then thing two, even back in 3 years ago, I think when you guys started this, it was already clear that if the demand wasn't totally there for this to be part of being a grown-up company or publicly traded, then it was obviously headed in that direction. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally right. I mean, they saw that things like the SEC looking to build out climate, disclosure rules and things like this. They started to look at all these other companies doing all these things around sustainability and social impact issues, and really looking to see how they can make sure that Olo is really buttoned up in this space and really serious, taking all of this work seriously right from the start.
Awesome. For the audience, if you can throw into the chat where you're calling in from, where you're at, we can tailor some of the conversation to your companies or industries or geographies. That would be super helpful. And again, if you have questions, throw them into the chat, or I think there's a Q&A thing as we move along. James, so as you got started there, you got brought in, they had this idea, you were at Dick's Sporting Goods before, you had built up a sustainability program for a pretty big business, I think Microsoft before that. What were some of the first three things you did when you joined Olo? You looked around, you had your 90-day plan, you tried to figure out what was going on, and you said, okay, team, here are the first three priorities we need to get done. What were they?
Yeah, that was so luckily there were a few things kind of already underway. Like they knew that they were hiring me. And so they kicked off these initiatives at the very start of the fiscal year when I was hired. And so they'd already engaged with QB on starting to build out our strategy, our framework, the reporting, all of that piece. So I just kind of stepped into that role and really took that forward, where we really focused on driving the materiality assessment. So talking with stakeholders, finding out what's important to us, what's not, mapping it, really honing in on the priorities for Olo in the ESG space, and then building out our framework, our vision, our mission around that. The foundational elements, right? Like that's really what I spent the first 12 months doing. And I was very specific to my leadership about it too. I was like, look, if we're going to do this, like we're doing this right. And I want to make sure we've got a good foundation to build from, and we kind of take it slow and steady and build from there. And luckily, they were very supportive and patient along the way, which is great to have, because they made sure that they understood the importance of building those foundational pieces and stuff. And we had some of these pieces already, right? Like Olo for Good was already underway. That was our philanthropic and social arm. We joined Pledge 1%. We'd already done a whole lot of work in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space. So that work was well underway. So it was a lot for me to already lean on when I walked in there to help kind of build out that strategy and make it a little bit more robust than it was.
Yeah, so it sounds like QB was already there, already setting some stuff up. Erica, I don't know if you were involved with the very earliest parts of Olo, but when you guys are being brought into a company at the earliest stages, and let's say I've done nothing. Let's say I'm just a CEO who's passionate about this, and I say, we're about to be public, or we are, you've done nothing. What are the first three things that QB helps companies begin to do to set up their programs?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. That's a great question. I think best practice always is sort of to do some internal reflection on the part of the actual company itself. But at QB, we always start with materiality assessment. As James had sort of alluded to prior, this really helps set up the foundation for where you're going to focus and narrow in on the specific impacts that your company is going to have on the external sort of world, if you will, and what are the external world factors that are going to in turn impact your company. So I think that would be, best practice first step, but every client comes to us in a different position with a different set of, priorities, different sets of ambition. Oftentimes it's the case that a specific CEO or, executive leadership really wants to drive environmental, priorities forward because they already know or they've already seen the impacts of this happening on the finance side of the business, or they're seeing the impacts on, employee motivation if they want to go on the social side of of the strategy. So, we always meet the company where they are, but I think starting at the materiality assessment, which is, it sounds like easier than it is. And we always sort of try to invoke the principle of talk to as many stakeholders that are involved with your company as possible. Don't just talk to the investors, don't just talk to the executives, talk to your employees who are going to be driving a lot of this strategy forward. Yeah. And then if you have environmental strategies at the forefront, and you already know that these are like the risks and opportunities that are happening on the environmental side, there are climate-related risks and opportunities. Another sort of tie-in best practice that you could do in tandem with a materiality assessment is start getting your GHG emissions inventory going, because that process takes quite a long time. And without a baseline, you can't really start measuring and tracking and setting your targets.
Yeah, I think there's two groupings of companies when you're talking about how they're building out sustainability strategies. There's folks with a lot of leadership engagement. They've got vision for it. They really believe in it. It's core to them. I think of a company like Atlassian or Salesforce as somebody where the CEO buys into it. They really care about it. The board talks about it. It's truly core to what they do. And then there's another group of companies who are beginning to do this sustainability thing, and they're doing the song and dance because some regulator, some big customer is making them do it, and they're going to grumble the whole way, and they're going to try to get some stuff done and then move on. And I'm curious, we'll start with Erica, but if that's the sort of company you're working with, which is a lot of companies who say, I've kind of framed it as a negative thing, but like they're busy, they got a lot of stuff going on, they do something that's not directly related to sustainability at all, and they just have to do this stuff. In those sorts of situations, let's say QB gets brought in, or you get a call and you're like, oh man, like I was assigned to do this sustainability stuff. What are those low-hanging fruits? What are those core things that they need to do that's really going to get them going at the bare minimum?
Yeah, we get this question quite a lot. And, the regulatory environment on sustainability work and disclosures are really pushing a lot of companies to start looking at things through that lens. And I think that's really the key point of all of this is, a company is already procuring energy. A company is already procuring goods and services. They're already related to climate, whether or not they sort of view it in that way, or look at their business in that way is, depending on wherever their sort of ambitions lie or where they are at in their environmental or sustainable journey, right? So I think a big part of what QB does is try to bring those people along, try to get buy-in from the get-go. This isn't just a siloed thing that is voluntary, that is good to do because you're trying to show responsibility in the space or in the market. But these are things that are inherently and intrinsically tied to the business, things that we got to sort of like have the conversation slowly and educate folks along of like, how do you decouple growth from emissions? It's not necessarily the case that like everything that you're going to do sustainability wise is going to cost an X number, more for the bottom line. There are actually things that might reduce your emissions and also reduce like things like your energy load, for example. So I think those are just the things that you can pinpoint at the outset. It's like, where are the opportunities where people get really excited about the work? And the great thing at Olo is like, there are so many people within Olo who are so excited about how Olo is showing up in the market, in the space. And, I'll let James talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I was gonna get to this a little later, but we can jump into it. James, you had this line when we were preparing for this. You called yourself a one-person maestro with an ERG that has a lot of grassroots support. You said you love your ERG because it adds a lot of value and moves things forward a lot faster. Talk about where that was at 3 years ago, where you joined. What was the first makings of this ERG, and like what's been most valuable or important? And specifically, I'm curious, like, how do you use it well? Because I see this idea get very exciting in the beginning. We're like, oh, we have all these people at the company who care about this and want to be involved, and we're going to have a monthly meeting. And that's awesome. And then very quickly, it dwindles down. and people miss the monthly meeting, or they don't really do what they were asked to do, mostly because they're busy and partially because they don't get paid for it. And also because maybe as their boss is kind of annoyed that they're not doing the main job, like 1,000 reasons for it. And it sort of dwindles down back into the one lonely hire. How did you guys make this a successful employee resource group and a team?
Yeah. So first, I would say we're not immune to any of those problems, right? Like we have those same problems, just like everybody else does around ERGs and making sure that employees get engaged. So it's not like we have solved all of those problems by any stretch. And the work with the ERG has been relatively new, but it's working really well. So essentially within Olo, right, I am the senior director of ESG strategy. I have two people on my team, one who focuses specifically on community and employee or culture and employee engagement. The other person focused on DEIB. And so I focus on the rest of the stuff. And one of those things is environmental sustainability. I'm trying to build it up inside of Olo because when I think about all the different areas in ESG, that is the area where we've historically been the weakest. But a good social impact program, good governance, that kind of stuff. But the environmental side, we've needed to beef up, and with QB's help, we've been able to do that, which is great. But the ERGs was instrumental in there. So we have 7 different ERGs in the company. One of them is Olo Green. So when I joined the company, I became the sponsor of Olo Green. I was like, okay, well, if there's going to be an ERG focused on sustainability, I might as well be a part of it and or lead it if I can. So I wanted to bring it into the strategy we were building rather than treat them like they were a separate entity. So as part of our climate strategy, I brought in employee engagement as one of the key pillars. I was thinking like, hey, if we're really going to build up excitement about sustainability inside the company and change people's behavior and culture and and how they think about problems and how they think about money and issues in the company, it starts with driving awareness, enthusiasm around sustainability. And so no place to better do that than the ERG we already have in the company. And so really what I did was sit down with the 2 ERG volunteer leaders and say, hey, look, here's the strategy that I'm going for. Here's how I see you playing a role. Like, how do you see yourselves playing a role in this? Like, how do you see the ERG? Anything missing, anything not missing? I gave them an opportunity to provide input and feedback on our climate strategy, as well as our ESG reporting and everything that has to do with ESG or environmental sustainability. I tap into these 2 people and I include them in those decisions and get their feedback and things like this. So I'm trying to pull the ERG closer into the strategy to make them more aligned so that when they drive initiatives around volunteering or they want to drive a recycling or waste reduction campaign for all of our work from home employees, it aligns to strategy that we already have set up across Olo, and those 2 dovetail nicely together, and we can make a better impact than if the ERG was just doing its own thing. So that's what we've started to do. So far, so good. I'd say it's going well. You kind of have to ask them and the participants of the ERG whether or not they think it's worthwhile. I think it's going well. And I'm looking forward to doing some more things. We're looking at rolling out a work from home sustainability guide for our employees too this year, putting it in our kind of our internal website that helps people understand things that they can do at home to reduce waste, reduce energy, find renewable energy where they live, things like this. So trying to really drive that awareness as much as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sarah, can you throw up that second poll question? I want to begin to understand for the folks on the call, what's been the hardest part of a sustainability program to begin to build up, or what's been the hardest part of beginning your own sustainability program? And in that light, James, I'm hoping you can talk to your specific experience at Olo, and then Erica, you can comment what you see other really good companies doing about metrics for success. How do you know that what you're doing is working? We're going to get into kind of tying this to financials, or maybe this is that thread, but I think I want to understand, a couple years ago when I started working in this field, it was marketing and feel good, and this is a great thing, and young people care about this, and that's all, that was what it was, and it lived in the marketing department and the HR department. And the big transition, I think, over the last 2 or 3 years is that sustainability had moved out of marketing and HR and into finance, legal, investor relations. Those are the businesses that have taken it over. And so I think the metrics for success have changed a lot as well. James, what are the metrics for success for your department? How does your boss know that you're doing a good job and you're driving the business forward? How do you get bonused? Or like, how do people know you're doing a good job? You don't have to tell me how much money you make. Curious, but that's okay. And Erica, then the question will go to you of like, who does the companies who do a really good job of this, what are their metrics for success? How do they know they're doing a good job?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I struggle with this all the time, right? Trying to find the right measures to make sure that we're actually doing the right things. We're still somewhat new at this. What I've been at Olo 3 years, I think, something like that. So I still consider us pretty new at this game. But a few different things that we use, of course, and by the way, I sit within our people and culture team, which is our HR team. So in previous groups, I've sat within legal, I've sat within Office of Sustainability. So it depends, it depends on your view. So we have a very kind of people-centric, ESG focused like generally speaking. But so when we look at measurements, we of course look at third-party ESG ratings, right? Like the S&P CSA, like the ISS, MSCI, everything that we can think of, we look at those and track and make sure that we're doing what we can there to see that we're tracking in the right direction. But we also obviously have our own goals, right? Like as part of our ESG program, there's things that we care about, and I'd say we're getting better at setting those goals. I think I'm really happy with the goals that we have now related to our carbon neutral and trying to look at our reduction policies as well as offsets, things related to our employee engagement work. Like I think all of that is core to our kind of people piece and getting our people involved. But I do think that there's things we can do on the like the Ola for Good side, right? That's our big philanthropic arm. We've given over $9 million away, which is great. We have our causes and we've got our focus areas. But like one of our focus areas, for example, is food insecurity, which is great. I'm happy to help support organizations on food insecurity, but I'd love to be able to put some metrics around that. Like, are we trying to help like 1 million kids? We trying to help like 1 million adults? Like, try to put some metrics and targets around that, so we've got kind of some goal to head for on our philanthropic side too. So I'd say we've done some things to try to put some metrics out there that I think are pretty reasonable, but then other things that we still have definitely some growth.
Yeah, I like the thought of looking at things like MSCI or even a CDP score similar, just because it's imperfect but objective. Like anybody can look at that and say, we got a B minus. What did my competitors get? Oh, they got an A minus. We should probably get better because why would we be worse if we don't have to be worse? Or at least what is the cost of getting better? And then you can decide if it's worth that initiative.
Yeah.
So those are really objective standards. But then I like your point about saying, look, let's just all agree. Here's the stuff that we're focused on. If this is what matters, I saw you have a goal in your ESG report. One of the 4 environmental goals, I think, is getting a certain number, like growing the number of people involved in your ERGs by 50% or something like that. Like we
Yeah.
all agree that's good. If you're getting closer to that, that means you're doing a good job. If you're getting further away from that, that means we need to get better at something, right? It's not working the way it should.
That's totally right. Yeah. And a lot of those scores are super imperfect, but they are really super, as you said, kind of like simple, easy ways to kind of keep score and easy for my leadership to understand as well. They understand A through D, it's like they understand that scoring. And so it's really,
Even those leaders can figure out letters, right?
I know, right? And so I'm like, okay, here's the easy things that we can use to kind of mark our progress. And it really does provide, and a little secret tip on those too. Of course, I'm sure everybody uses these too. I use them to help then drive the importance of certain things I want to do. Like we're working on a supplier code of conduct in our company right now to help on our responsible procurement side, because scope 3, and we can get into all that. But our supplier code of conduct, we get dinged in all these places on scores because we don't have anything in place like this from a document related to this. And so using those scores as being like, hey, we can gain 5 points here and 10 points here, like that's super useful to leadership to gain their support to do this kind of thing too. So a little side tip there.
Yeah, and it's the stuff that they care about, right? The CFO might not care about employee engagement, but they care a lot about their MSCI score. So like you got to speak their language. Erica, QB has worked with some awesome companies. If you guys just go on the QB Consulting homepage, you'll see Olo there, pretty high up. But you'll also see Paramount and Brilliant Earth and Splunk and Verizon and Robert Half, like big important companies in tech and services and Caribou Coffee, really cool companies. What do they metric themselves against? What are the best ones that you've worked with hold themselves to? How do they know that they're doing a good job?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so much of this A is like, as you had both sort of alluded to, and the CDP scoring, the MSI, the ISS, all of that is sort of standardized. And what a lot of these sort of raters and rankers are looking for are not only quantitative pieces of data that are related to sustainability. So that could be like numerical data related to DEI, That could be your GHG emissions year over year, but it's also qualitative data, right? Like, are there policies and guardrails that exist within the company that help to govern these specific acts of operations or activities that lead to, better, good, or et cetera, right? So I think there's two dimensions that we can kind of look at this from. And I'm a big, big fan of not leaving out the qualitative because it's so important. And this is the approach that we take with all of our clients in crafting those KPIs, crafting those targets. Like, what does that actually look like for Olo? What does that actually look like for Paramount? What does that look like for Blackstone, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because every company is built differently. All the operations or services are different. And so we have to really tailor everything to something that makes sense, is ambitious enough, follows, the standard or protocol that you want to hit those sort of quantitative metrics on. But also like feasible and realistic to implement, right? Because as James sort of alluded to, if you don't have executive buy-in, it's going to lose traction somewhere. Of course, the power of sort of the ground up grassroots is super, super important. But at the end of the day, both sides of the coin need to be driving the same car. That's a terrible analogy. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I'm saying. But anyways, no coins are driving cars. Both wheels have to be moving in momentum in the same direction, right? Better analogy. Thank you for fixing myself. Yeah, some of the, quantitative things, especially on environmental, like we know, a lot of this is science-based. There's only a finite amount of carbon emissions that we as a collective Earth can emit. And we've been pushing the 1.5 degree future scenario for many, many years. There's credible science that is out there, and there are so many tools at our leisure now that we could easily track ourselves, remain accountable to the targets, actually know what's achievable, actually know what those hot spots of emissions are. And like every company is just driving towards, okay, we understand that this is like energy is like a big hotspot in our emissions. How do we counter offset that with either credits, renewable energy credits, or carbon credits, whatever the methodology is? And people can have an academic debate about this, but at the end of the day, it is, being accountable, transparent, being realistic, and not forgetting about the importance of that qualitative data, because it's so important. It really contextualizes everything that you do within a company.
I want to spend the rest of the conversation talking about two coins driving a car. That feels off topic, so we'll skip that. But I like you now. I like that. I want to talk in a minute about like putting this stuff into play, reducing GHG emissions, what actually works for a software company. But before that, I want to kind of throw an elephant in the room question, which all this sounds great. All this sounds wonderful. Economic boom times. Why not have a $9 million donation from Olo for Good? And why not focus on reducing emissions and getting all these employees volunteering? Like, why not hire somebody like James to build up a sustainability program? Because maybe MSCI who's going to give you a score. All that makes a lot of sense. In difficult economic times, which I've been hearing, either we've been in a recession for the last 3 years or it's been the world's greatest economy. It's one or the other. But in a difficult economic time, how do you keep this sustainability effort and sustainability program going? How do you make it continue to matter, not just when there's money to throw around, but quite the opposite? How do you make this part of when there's limited dollars available for something like this? James.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, honestly, right? Like I don't have all the answers by any stretch, of course. And I've done these programs in both really good times and in really, really hard times as well. So it's always the one thing that I always try to emphasize to my team and people I work with is the key. There's kind of two keys to this work. And one is being just rolling with it, because if not, you'll just kind of make yourself, you'll just really put so much stress and chaos into your life if you have a problem with all those kind of ups and downs and roadblocks and it not being just kind of a smooth path up. So just kind of being able to roll with it, but also creative thinking is kind of what I stress to my team all the time, because as much as I think ESG is the #1 priority that a company should possibly have, like some of them think that making money is like their #1 priority and selling their products. Like, I don't understand it, but like, companies, they have their priorities. And so, being realistic about where ESG sits in that, in their priority of everything they need to do, right? So if a company's struggling financially, I can see how this work becomes kind of a nice to have. And I think one of the things that I've tried to do to help try to overcome that challenge is really making ESG part of the tying it to the mission and the strategy as much as possible, right? Like I talked about how this is kind of core to Noah's belief, the social impact history, and how kind of the values of the company. So ESG fits snugly within that, right? Like, so I feel pretty comfortable in the feeling that ESG is a priority for a company. This stuff is a priority for the company when it talks about wanting to do good in the communities in which it lives, work, and serve. Like, this is kind of the work in which it does it, and so the company believes that, which is nice. And so part of the trick, though, in this role is to making that relationship happen. And so part of that is building good relationships with the C team. And one of the things, I think, speaking your language, I think we were talking about which data to use to help to bring those C team interested and make them understand kind of the benefit. I think that's part of it. But the other part is, one of the things I've done at Olo is, and I've done this in other places too, is in addition to kind of my boss, who's the chief people officer, I have executive sponsors for ESG inside the company. I have the chief operating officer and the chief legal officer. Like, I work with their teams a ton in the ESG space. And so I was like, why not recruit that C team level as my ally and into this work as well, and bring them as close as I can so that they understand kind of the issues and they understand what's happening. And so then when they're having meetings at higher levels, C team meetings and board meetings that I may not be in, not only do I have my manager as an advocate, but I have these other 2 people in the company that aren't my direct manager who are advocates for this work as well. And so building that network inside and making sure they understand how this work ties into the legal department's goals and how this work ties into the financial team goals, like that helps build some of that connection. And so it's not easy to do, and I'm not saying it works 100% of the time, but like that's kind of the strategy that I've tried to take in trying to protect myself against those kind of ebbs and flows of the economic and political and societal winds.
Yeah, I met with a woman this morning who was the sustainability lead for another publicly traded tech company, and was just asking about her work and what she's doing, what she's working on. And she said one of her plays, or one of like the frustrating things at the beginning when she started this a few years ago, was she was like, "Oh, I'm the sustainability team. I got to do all the sustainability stuff." And so she took on carbon accounting and climate risk and employee engagement and measurement. And she took on all this stuff because she was a sustainability person. And then she'd go into like leadership conversations, and when they were talking about product, finance had something to say, and HR had something to say, and marketing had something to say. And when they were talking about sales, all the teams had something to say. When they were talking about sustainability, she would show her slide and everyone would clap, and then they'd move on to the next person. And so what she started doing more and more is basically just like being a funnel for sustainability stuff, and just saying, I might find the thing or like pick the tool or escalate the issue, but that's not my job. That's risk's job. That's like carbon accounting is not my job. It's finance's job. And then she just basically moved that along and championed it, or was a point of contact, like made this everyone else's job. So you couldn't actually get rid of the program, because that meant you were getting rid of finance or your employees or marketing or whatever. So like really dug in a lot of other places. James, when we were preparing for this, your version of that is, I wrote down this quote where you wrote, "The mistake is not making ESG linked specifically to finance or supply chain or cost. If you don't link it, it just becomes a standalone program, and you do it because it's the right thing and not because it's good for the bottom line." Can you give me a specific example of how Olo links sustainability to finance or to cost inside the company?
Yeah, sure. And I can't believe I said those words. It's great. I can't, that sound great.
They sound really great.
I know, right? How did I say that? Yeah. So like I said, right, like as I've kind of said multiple times, like we're still new at this in Olo, right? Like we're still kind of starting this out. And so I share all of this with the spirit of kind of people learning from it. And, if you've got other ideas, of course, I'd love to hear them afterwards. But one of the ways that I've done it, because we're primarily, when you look at our emissions, right? So we started doing our emissions right away as part of some of our foundational work back to 2019, every year since. It's primarily scope 3, right? Look, we're a tech company driven primarily by the cloud, right? We have an office in New York, but we're like 80% work from home, so we are all over the place. So we are primarily scope 3 driven emissions. A lot of that is our cloud usage, and so we care a lot about our cloud and our technology. Technology is a huge focus. So I was thinking at Olo, I was like, okay, well, how do I start this conversation about money and sustainability? So I was thinking technology is probably the most natural place to start because that's what we care the most about. And I was thinking cloud. So I started to do a little bit of research. And it turns out that we primarily use AWS. Like 80% of our cloud providers are on renewable energy. Right. And like nobody really understood that. Our cloud team didn't understand that. Our finance team didn't understand that. I did that by kind of looking at some of our emissions data and the sourcing and of our partners and where that was coming from. And then I shared it with them, and it kind of clicked, and they were like, and they could see in that data too that the use of the cloud had gone down. They were like, not only the cost went down, but then as AWS turned on more renewable energy, our emissions went down and all that kind of stuff. And then it clicked for them. They were like, oh, we've been running these financial efficiencies kind of exercises over the past couple of weeks, trying to tweak our servers to bring down the cost of running them. And they're like, we didn't really think about how that translates into emissions. And they're like, but they're like, so when we've been focusing on costs, what we're really doing is reducing emissions. I'm like, yes, like, yes, that's exactly right. And so those light bulbs are starting to happen inside the company, right? Like I think, and when we talk about GHG emissions, our finance team is completely involved in that, right? Like I can't do that without their help in running that program, right? Like they are very essential in running over our GHG emissions, so they understand kind of cost equals emissions. So the teams are starting to kind of make this connection here. I'd say, so those are kind of two ways in which I've kind of tried to start making that connection, but we're still right at the start of it.
Yeah. Eric, I want to ask you, actually, go anything, how would you think about tying sustainability to finance?
Yeah, well, exactly what James said. No. Yeah, I sort of alluded to this in the beginning when I was talking about how do we decouple growth from emissions, right? And so James's example of Olo thinking about their cloud use and, how do we make the software more efficient? How do we make our product more energy efficient? That's, on the one spectrum, servicing and growing the company and then reducing your emissions, right? So those things are naturally decoupled all of a sudden. Tying those sort of metrics together, and as James said, holding finance and that team sort of having a purview on carbon accounting and emissions and purchase goods and services, et cetera, et cetera. There's a growing role that's happening all across the board called the ESG controller, which is, as many of you probably know, is looking at the data integrity of all of the emissions accounting that's happening and the financial data that feeds into that emissions, right? So I think there is an explicit tie here, but the big part of this is how do we bring those educational pieces along? How do we create those like big bright light moments as James at Olo did, and I think wanting to go back to a thing in the beginning that James mentioned, like in hard times, you got to get creative, and like creative thinking is resilience, right? This is how you become resilient in downturns. You just start building practices and foundations into the business, making those links more explicit, making people like understand and accept this as being part of the role. And in that way, it's just like people start to naturally see climate in things like enterprise risk management, things in like financial risk management, et cetera.
Yeah. I have one or two more topics to touch on, but in the meantime, in our final 20 minutes or so, if you guys have questions for either James or Erica, or me, I will try, but mostly James or Erica, throw them into the chat, or I think there's a Q&A box, so please enjoy. Erica, you talked about decoupling growth from emissions. James, another quote I wrote down from you last time, was that the phase of business, I took a lot of notes for you. The phase of business that you're currently in is growth, and that means having a lot of emissions. You can't stop growth. You don't want to stop growth, but how do you do it thoughtfully? I'm going to add the caveat, and this is public, but if you look up Olo's 2023 ESG report, which came out a month or two ago, you're going to see emissions going up pretty steadily. In 2021, they were 3,400 tons. 2022, they were 5,200 tons. And this past year, they were 7,400 tons. So emissions are rising. And it is because, I think if I read in your ESG report, it's a lot of travel. People are seeing clients more, people are seeing each other more. And then your go-to-market has been a stronger thing. You're doing a lot of marketing. How do you think about grow? Like, two questions, I guess, but how do you think about looking at that chart going up and to the right when you want it to be going down and you want it to be decoupled is question one. How do you frame that? How do you talk about it? Do you defend it? Is it a problem? Like, how do you think about that? And then question two is, how do you grow thoughtfully? What are the things, I know you're doing a bunch of them, but what are the things that you're doing to say, well, as we grow, let's make sure we're doing it in the right way?
Yeah, cool. So the easy topic.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So right. So yeah, oh, totally. It is, yeah, it's our emissions are growing without a doubt. Like there's no denying that for sure. What I try to, and I tend to be an impatient person, so it's definitely something I struggle with. But what I try to tell myself to give myself a little grace and patience is our climate strategy that we worked with Erica and the wonderful team at QB on really only kind of started this year. And so we're only just starting in the climate space. Before that, we were just kind of tracking. We weren't doing anything. So now we're kind of taking our first steps towards it. I still think we're going to see it go up for a while we figure things out, but at least I feel a little better that we're starting to take action towards it. So there's that piece of it. But then the other thing is it's kind of a little bit of a reality of where we are right now in a business, right? Like our business will continue to grow. Our leadership is trying to make our business grow as much as possible, right? And it's part of my business to try to limit the impact of that growth. So the two are a little bit at odds. But I'm fine with that, and I recognize that. And so as we see it tick up, it's expected, and we see it happening. What I'm trying to do in the meantime is look for areas that are driving those emissions, such as travel and kind of our go-to-market stuff, and see what we can do within those areas to find efficiencies to drive. So start to limit the growth and or turn that growth upside down, right? Like to start to drive some of that stuff down. So for travel, for example, I'm going to be looking at our travel policy, looking at travel guidelines, things like this to try to limit voluntarily and educate our employees on kind of and our executives on what travel they're doing, how much it costs, what airlines are better for emissions, what aren't, trying to educate them a little bit, trying to educate them on the impact of their travel. Right now, like this year, we've had less, I'd say, overall kind of team travel, maybe higher executive travel this year. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But that just varies from year to year. Things like our responsible procurement program, right? So we're looking at some of these things too, to try to limit what we're purchasing, the services and goods that we're purchasing from a travel perspective, from a go-to-market perspective. And so that's an area that we're first starting to target, I would say. We haven't really made much progress in, right? Making this. Part of it is starting to change employees' minds and getting them to think, to make good decisions every day throughout the year when they're working on their own and not just listening to me. And that work is underway. So yes, it does concern me, but I do think we have a few things in place to look at to try to help mitigate some of that work going forward, or some of those emissions going forward.
Yeah, you talked a little about offsets for travel, and in your ESG report, you have 4 goals under the sustainability portion. 2 of them are related to offsets. You write by 2025, we want to achieve carbon neutrality for scope 1 and 2, and you want to continue to offset for domestic travel emissions. And then your 2 other goals are about Olo green participation and committing to a carbon reduction goal. Can you walk me through what the conversation was like around offsets? It's a big line item. You're literally paying for something brand new. I imagine there's education about it. There's bad press about it. As a very important caveat, I think carbon offsets can be done very, very, very well. I work with most of my clients on them. So like, I'm coming from a place of support. What was the conversation like internally? What was the pushback you received? And then why, in the end, did you decide offsets are 50% of your goals around sustainability?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of the internal conversations, it's I feel very fortunate with this program in Olo and the place that I am right now. In terms of driving ESG programs, I get a large amount of trust and leeway, which is really nice. Inside of Olo, and I credit the leadership for that. Of course, kind of building that environment that allows me to do that. That doesn't mean they're entirely hands off. They're not. Like I have regular updates with my ESG sponsors and with my boss and all that kind of stuff, and with the C team, so they understand what's happening. It's just I don't get as much, I think, intense kind of pressure and questioning from leadership that I have in other companies previously, which can be challenging and daunting for sure. So the offset question was honestly a fairly easy one. It was, I worked with QB, of course, on making sure that what we were doing was right, right? Like it's like I'm with you. Like I see offsets and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this. Like that's my initial instinct is like, I do not want to do this. But when I look at our opportunities for tackling some emissions, like right now, that is a lever we can pull pretty quickly and pretty easily as a company that starts to make some difference and shows our intention. That's kind of how I see it, right? Like I don't see it necessarily as a long-term solution for everything we do, but I see it as like, okay, where we are right now, like what can I do today to start to take a step in this direction? I worked with Erica and the QB team, and it was like, okay, offsets. What do we do there? Like what's possible? What makes sense? Who do I work with? What do I look for? And so we focused on scope 1 and 2 emissions, A, because they're small and leadership won't freak out over the costs. And B, because it's kind of, they're two nice little chunks that we can just kind of hive off together and be like, scope 1 and 2, here we go. Scope 3 is an entirely different problem. And so really scope 1 and 2 was where we started, right? And that's also some area where we can take some steps to try to reduce our energy when I think about headquarters and things like this, but they're all really, really minor things, but they're things that people can kind of attach to, right? Like they're a little more tangible. People can understand them a little bit more than they can a supplier code of conduct or responsible procurement and things like this. And so it's a way to kind of get people excited too. So doing scope 1 and scope 2. And so that's really what I brought to the C team. I was like, look, here's kind of where we are. Here's things we can do. I actually have a little bit of room in my budget because I kind of thought ahead and thought we might do this anyway. And so we have some room anyway. It doesn't cost you anything extra. And they were like, sure. And I talked to them about the potential rise of those costs and things. And we felt like the risk was worth kind of taking that approach for right now. But as part of those goals, we also do have things like, looking at our policies. I know Eric is a big fan of policies and guidelines too. I am as well. I think they're big inside of a company, but also looking at other ways to reduce some of our travel and other emissions that we have too. Although right now it's primarily offsets. My hope is that over time, it'll start to be a lot more reduction, less in the offset space.
Yeah, I heard this, talking about tying sustainability to finance. The former head of sustainability at Canva, the design software company, told me a story where before he joined in like 2018 or 19, the company committed to being carbon neutral. They put out a press release, we're going to be go forward carbon neutral. They maybe didn't totally understand what it meant, but they said it and they were going to do it. So this guy joined and he was trying to figure out how to engage finance more. And he found this goal in some throwaway blog post. And he was like, oh my God, you guys just said you're going to be go forward carbon neutral. Like, let's lay out what those costs are going to be like for you over the next 5 or 10 years. And let's say they're going to be making this up 50 grand a year. All of a sudden, you have $50,000 a year to work with where you say, hey, finance department, every time you reduce travel or every time you are more efficient in our cloud usage or every time you're more effective in how we use real estate, you actually spend less money on offsets. Like you're going to have to spend the money. This
Totally.
commitment, you made this promise, not me, but since you made it, let's work on reducing emissions so that you can actually, every time you do it, you save $5,000 on offsets, $20,000 on offsets, whatever, and that number will go down over time. So I think that was really cool. In our last few minutes, as we finish up, I want to open up the last poll, which is more about just what should we spend future webinars and future events talking about. So if you can open that up, Sarah. And in the meantime, I want Erica's comment on the other poll that we took 15 minutes ago. So the question was, what is the biggest challenge your company faces in implementing ESG strategies? And the top 3 out of those 5 answers in order were data collection and reporting, And then tied were lack of expertise and limited leadership buy-in. I think for lack of expertise, I'll answer that. You're in the right place. Come join webinars. There's a lot of great communities. There's a lot of things to read. I published a book called Attainable Sustainability, Building Your Corporate Climate Strategy. Feel free to read that. There's a lot of places to learn. I think one of the really cool things about the sustainability world is it's super not competitive. Our CEO, Alex Lasseter, has this great line, which is basically like, if Nike and Patagonia and Amazon get sustainability right, but nobody else does, we're still in a terrible place from climate change. Like, that's a huge issue. And so what you find is that sustainability people are very open with what they're doing. There are very few, if any, trade secrets. Like, everyone's very transparent. You can find this amazing blog post, ebook, whatever, from Atlassian, the very large publicly traded tech company, called, it's what it's called, Don't Fuck the Planet. But instead of that word, it's just a bunch of asterisks and whatever, but you can Google it and it will come up, and it's a giant publicly traded company that puts it out. And it's a decarbonization guide for software businesses. Like, it's incredible how much resources are out there, so you can check all those out. But so that's on the lack of expertise portion. Erica, can you comment about, let's do data collection and reporting? Because that is always a huge pain. That is always very, very difficult for companies, is to figure out, where do I get this data? Who do I ask for? Why do I need it? It lives in so many places in my organization. It's incredibly disorganized. Oh my God, what a pain in the butt. What do companies who are just getting started struggle with the most in data collection and reporting, which are kind of, two sides of the same coin, driving the same car, so to speak, as the analogy goes. But what do people struggle with the most? What have you seen work as they begin to set up these programs?
Yeah, definitely. All of those questions right? And I think that is the first step, going to all of the departments and being like, where is all of this data? And, I don't think any company has gotten data centrality right. And the bigger and bigger and more convoluted and complex your scope 3 emissions are, the more complex your company is, the more complex all of that data gathering becomes. I've worked with real estate owner operators a lot in my time at QB, and it's really difficult when you have a company that is investing and owning multiple physical assets across the globe and trying to track all of their energy utility data. Like, you just think about your house energy bill, do that times like a bazillion times. It's incredibly difficult. And I think there is no real best practice about this because it is messy, but I think, getting to data centrality, understanding what are those data pieces that you do need to collect, as part and parcel of, maybe compiling your first baseline GHG inventory, your carbon accounting inventory, will set you on the path to more data centrality over time, right? People just become more comfortable with providing you the metrics that you need in order to calculate your emissions, in order to meet some sort of disclosure standard, et cetera, et cetera. It's about sort of building the practice for the long term. Like, it's not a marathon, or it's not a race, it is a marathon. And again, you build the basics, you build the foundation, and then from there, hopefully that data and reporting becomes less and less painful. And then it's so good that we have folks like Green Places, because remember doing GHG accounting on spreadsheets? That was insane. That was insane.
Yeah. So a lot of it is just building the muscle. I mean, I know companies I've worked with, the first year they begin to calculate emissions, it might take 4 months just to collect the data, because they never even knew where to look at. Like, they don't even know where to go. By the time they're doing this the second year, it takes 4 weeks. And then one guy I know who runs a pretty big company, he does it in 2 days. He's just like, he knows where it all is. It's all organized. It helps with other finance teams, and he amazing does it in 2 days. I'm going to ask each of you two quick final questions with a quick answer for each. We talked a lot about decarbonizing and how to reduce emissions and how to think about it. And actually, in the last poll, when people answered what they want to hear more of, carbon footprint reductions was the second most popular answer. So really quickly, each one of you, James and then Erica, what is one thing that a company that either Olo for you, James, or just a company you work with is doing, can do well to reduce emissions? One specific thing.
For us, it's our responsible procurement program, right? Like we haven't paid attention to emissions at all as part of our procurement and our partnerships and our suppliers and things like this. And we're starting to pay more close attention to it now, put things in place to help drive emissions down in our scope 3.
Yeah, Erica?
Policies are in there, and they put guardrails around behaviors and operations, and they leave a legacy. People move in and out of opportunities and roles, but you've got a baseline policy that's putting guardrails around behaviors within a company that sustains over time, that gets changed over time, but at least you've got somewhere that you started with and somewhere that you hopefully progress to going forward in the future.
Awesome. And then last question, you guys can answer in reverse, Erica, then James. But when you're banging your head against the ESG wall and you're trying to figure out what to do next and you're struggling through it and you're really, really like trying to make something happen, and it's not always easy when you're in a silo, where do you go? Who do you look to? Who inspires you? What keeps you going? What advice would you give to somebody kind of earlier in this effort?
Yeah, that's a hard one. First, take a really deep breath, because nobody is dying immediately anyway. And seek the support of the sustainability network, right? Like, we are all here to share. And I think even, as a consultant, we share in the sort of struggles that sustainability leaders also face. And we all have similar problems and similar issues. And so I think sharing and keeping an open mind and, keeping that sort of mental mantra, if you will, that you're not doing this alone, even if sometimes you are, James. You're not always alone. So yeah.
Yeah, James?
Yeah, you still like basically all of my answer, but I will say I go outside. Like I just have to go outside when I start to get too frustrated. That's one thing I tell my team all the time, and anybody who wants to get into this role. I'm like, it can seem like all like unicorns and rainbows and like, oh, I'm saving the world, but it can be a very frustrating role to have inside of a company. And yeah, I go outside. I literally just get up and go and I walk outside of the house because I can't. Otherwise, I need a break away. So that's my technique to deal with it all.
That's a good one. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
James from Olo, Erica from QB, thank you so much for joining us. Just as a quick summary, sustainability is, as we talked about, a requirement for almost every single business. It's not something you can just get away with, and it's certainly not only for the biggest business in the world. Everyone needs to figure this out. So Green Places is it's all-in-one sustainability platform. We help companies like Olo of your guys' size figure out how to measure emissions, how to make it easy, how to not deal with the headache of data collection quite as much, how to apply to all these different regulations, I think can solve a lot of these problems. Please reach out. All of us you can find on LinkedIn. That is me specifically, but reach out, say hi. If there's any way in which James, Erica, myself, or anyone else on our teams can help, we're very happy to. But thank you all very much for joining. Thank you, James and Erica, for being with us today. Appreciate it. Have a great day.